Ladies and gentlemen, happy 2022.
Hi,
That's Darren.
it's me.
I'm Brandon. Guys, we're back. We are back with another episode, and we are joined by a gentleman we just met, but it feels like a brother from another mother that we've known for years. And we got our boy Joel, aka Token Black Guy. Joel, what's good, man?
Man, token black guy. I see two other token black guys with me.
That's what, look, we're just some tokens. I think I'm going to call the episode that.
Yeah.
Black tokens.
Black tokens. That's what it is. I mean, geez, it's good, man. Thank you for having me on, by the way. Definitely
Absolutely.
appreciate it. I'm excited after our previous conversations, of course.
Yeah, man.
This is going to be very steamy. So let's get into it.
We did an episode with Dr. Christina Crenshaw from Baylor. And I think a few days after that, she sent me one of your videos. I forget what it was because you churn out some content. Let me tell you something. And she sent me one of your videos and said, you guys should have him on. And I was like, done. I saw your video. I'm like, yeah, done.
How do I even know her? Does she know me?
I guess she just
I think she
follows your
follows you.
page. Yeah. She follows your page. So listeners, like if you don't follow Token Black Guy on Instagram, follow him. Follow his page.
I'm honored.
Yeah, man.
It's not every day that happens at all where it's like, oh, this guy, I just make content like every other American, you know?
Yeah.
So I just assume, because people see me on the street and they're like, oh, aren't you that? I'm like, no, I'm just a normal dude. I'm just a freaking normal guy, not a celebrity. Because that's when it becomes an issue. When
That
you
is
think you're
when
a
it becomes
celebrity,
an issue.
You're like, yeah, I'm the
exactly right.
stuff. No.
Yeah, man. But you also are an ambassador for PragerU, right?
I'm an ambassador for Prager Force, and I'm an ambassador for Turning Point USA, and Today is America.
And so how did that begin? And then after you share this, we're going to jump backwards, and then you can tell our listeners a little bit about yourself.
Well, that began because I actually started doing this, like the political commentating, a year ago, which was actually pretty funny because I never wanted to touch politics. Never. I was a college student in Boston, and I was like, you know what? Yeah, I love Trump. I would have voted for him in 2016. Yeah, I know. I started commentating last year, and I really got into it, and I kind of found my niche. And my first collab was it with PragerU? Because I love PragerU well before. I used to learn from them, all that. I became a PragerU Prager Force influencer because they have more of like a get involved type of mindset, because PragerU is the parent company, but Prager Force is to draw in younger crowds that want to learn about America, and they teach you a whole bunch. It's a huge community. So if you have kids who actually want to be a part and make a difference, have them start with Prager Force, because they educate them tremendously and they make them critically think every single day. So Prager Force was the first one. I'm not a PragerU ambassador yet, which I will be soon. And then it was Turning Point USA. I went to a Turning Point event last year, SAS. Are you guys familiar with SAS? Student Action Summit.
Oh, I've heard of that. Yeah, I've heard
Student Action Summit. That's basically where a whole bunch of young conservatives, even adults, can go and they just turn up, man.
Yeah,
great speakers, breakout sessions, those kinds of things where you get to meet people you actually watch online, and you're like, oh, those dudes are dope. And then you meet them and you're like, they're just normal people. That's where I started. I met my girlfriend there, actually. So shout out to Turning Point for that, because dude, changed my life 100% and became an ambassador for them this year. And we went to America Fest, and it was probably the biggest event you'll ever be at. So
I don't know about you, but I am a proponent. We are proponents of, I think you've addressed this a little bit where our private conversations, but we want to have discourse with people who disagree. Like, we want to talk about these things, but we're at a place now where you go to those, you talk about these different conferences you've been to. And it's a breath of fresh air to be around like-minded people.
Oh man,
you get to lay your hair down. you get to turn a little bit of your wheels off in your brain because you know that they're not going to try to attack you on something frivolous
No, it's easy.
Yeah, you just can be and relax. It's like a nice breath of fresh air.
Absolutely. It's kind of a chamber. You're surrounded by like-minded individuals where it's just like, yeah, we are all here for a common purpose, which is good to reunite and to kind of like recharge. But at the end of the day, we don't grow in that light. We listen to very similar individuals like Tucker, but at the end of all of it, we need to be challenged. And that's kind of why we go to these conferences, because they do tell you, go out there, go have those conversations. And we would be willing to go to the left's events if they ever held anything like Turning Point. But they don't do those kinds of things. And we would happily invite them in if they would be civil about the whole situation. But the majority of them don't want to be in our environment, I suppose, to we when it comes to them. And that's kind of the issue there.
Do people at the Turning Point events continuously interrupt one another over a point of personal privilege?
Absolutely not. There's not even a point of personal. You guys watched that video where I was like,
it's the cringiest thing I've ever seen.
I feel triggered.
Yeah.
Oh,
I'm like, did the meeting start yet?
Yeah.
When did they start?
No, that
quick point of privilege. Quick point of personal privilege.
Yes.
Guys, first of all, James Jackson, Sacramento, he, him. I just want to say, can we please keep the chatter to a minimum? I'm one of the people who's very, very prone to sensory overload. There's a lot of whispering and chatter going on. It's making it very difficult for me to focus.
Point of personal privilege.
Yes.
Please.
Just the beginning. That was introductions.
If you guys haven't seen clips from the Democratic Socialist Convention, then try and watch them. It's hard. It's hard.
I believe 5-year-olds could have a better conversation than they would.
100%.
Because 5-year-olds are like, oh, okay, we have something in common, but we're not snowflakes.
And I refuse to believe that even a quarter of Americans think like that.
Yeah.
Like those are the only people that think like that in that room. Like it has to be.
Oh no,
like, that was the most
getting
insane.
Worse.
Yeah, I know it is.
It is.
It's getting worse. Go on these college campuses. That's where
they're breeding.
Starts.
Yeah, they're breeding. Yeah.
You know what? And that is slightly scary to me because it's been a while since I've been on a college campus. I'll be 35 in February. And I haven't and then outside of that, I've been in church ministry. So I haven't been on a college campus and I don't know what that's like. I'm curious to hear about what that looks like a little bit from you.
Well,
but wait, before you get into that, let's start from the beginning because the one thing I fell in love with from the moment I laid eyes on your video was your handle.
Deep words, man. Very deep.
Your handle. Token black guy. I said, I don't need to watch this video. He's coming over. We're gonna have dinner and enjoy time together. But dude, you have got to share about where that name came from and just let that bleed into kind of like who you are a little bit.
Well, that name honestly comes from a background joke, like I told you, where it's just like, yeah, I grew up in Africa. I grew up surrounded by very like-minded individuals who share the same skin color as I do, where that was not really a huge problem. But I also grew up where it was naturally diverse. Naturally diverse because I went to an international school where there was kids from all over the place, man. Like it didn't matter. Of course, there were rich individuals, but I was one of those kids who basically didn't affiliate with just one group just because of my skin color. And I always had an Asian friend, a Hispanic friend, you name it, all of those kinds of people in my circle. And I was always the only black guy. And I look around and I'm like, where are they? And you see, there's just like in high schools today, a clique of black people right there, a clique of Asians. Asians are the worst at that, actually. No offense. Asians are the worst at that, especially in college where they just stay together. They don't care about anybody. You talk about racist, I'm going to say Asians are probably the most racist after.
Wow.
No, it's not funny. But that's kind of how it came about. And then when I went into politics, I was like, if I'm going to do something like this, obviously I'm my goal is to become a governor. So afterwards, I was like, okay, I want to be funny, and I want to kind of like level the playing field and allow people to joke a little bit about it because it's a conversational starter. People like token black guy USA. You're not the only token black guy USA. What the heck? So I picked that name specifically to break the ice with everybody because I knew the liberals would be triggered, and I knew and if you saw my video, my coming out video as a conservative, which I wasn't really coming out as a conservative, but that's kind of what I was doing because they were going to call me that eventually. So you have to embrace whatever they're going to throw at you. So that's kind of why I decided Token Black Guy USA, and it's always represented me. So it didn't change a thing. It just became who I am. And now everywhere I go, people are like, "You're Token Black Guy." I'm like, "Okay, thank you."
Yeah,
Well,
I mean, oh, go ahead.
Yeah, Joel, on on behalf of former Vice President Joe Biden.
You ain't black.
Oh, thank you. Man, I gotta get me one of those white privilege cards now.
Man, you know, like what you're saying, we've addressed this a number of times because it's similar to our background, probably on the other side of the spectrum. Where we grew up in Baltimore City, West Baltimore City.
I'm sorry, man.
And here's the thing, our parents raised us in a well-rounded way. So obviously all of Baltimore City where we grew up is all black, but they put us in sports that was all white. We were always the only black guys on our sports teams. We grew up playing soccer and baseball. And so, you know, so we didn't feel at home playing sports, though we knew how to blend. Then we also didn't feel at home all the way even at home in Baltimore City because we weren't like our parents put guardrails around our lives. They cared about our education and they punished us when we got in trouble. And
we had two of them.
Yeah, we
had two of them.
You know,
it makes a huge difference.
Right. They trained us in how to speak and speak well. And so some of the things that you run into that I'm sure you definitely ran into is that when you are black and when you do those things, apparently that's outside of the profile of what a black American should be doing.
Yeah,
exactly.
Which is the dumbest thing in the world.
And from an outsider's perspective, from an African American necessarily, it's shocking to witness that kind of behavior and that lack of accountability because I came here, I was an orphan, and I was adopted into a white military family whom had the biggest heart. Today, they would be considered racist because they adopted a black kid. Look at Amy Coney Barrett, when the judge who was appointed by Trump. They attacked her character for adopting kids from Haiti. Who does that? And she was called a white supremacist because she decided to adopt. And that was completely above me because I'm like, wouldn't that make my parents racist then? Because now they're just cloaking to hide the fact that they're racist. Because in college, I'm going to jump a little bit there. In college, one of my bosses, I worked as an RA. My boss basically stated to me that your parents don't love you and they don't want you to succeed because of the color of your skin. They don't have your best interest at heart. And I'm like, you have to be one of the stupidest, but she's very intelligent. So that is probably one of the saddest things I've ever witnessed within the black community because I don't hate the black community. They think I do. They think I do because I talk so critical about them, but I see potential. So therefore I criticize, and I do the same thing with the white community, the Hispanic community, the Asian community. I just said Asians are the most racist. I can get canceled for that.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you know, that's something I went to a pretty diverse high school, but I wouldn't say that we had Asians, but they weren't, it wasn't a high population of Asians. So I don't even know what that looks like. I mean, because I know they're very communal. They're very communal. We have Asian American friends, Korean American more specifically, but what did that look like in college? Like, is it just because they're communal, or were there actual tendencies where it's like, hey, we don't rock with you?
I mean, I'm not gonna. It's like the notion of saying all black people are racist, all white people are racist, all that. My best friend is Asian, but I am blunt with her. I'm like,
Yeah.
you got, and she's an oddball out as well. She does not hang out with Asians because she sees the exact same thing, even though she's from Vietnam. Well, that's the interesting thing there. But to see them, it's always been kind of like a mindset type of thing, because you're raised in Asia, in China, in Vietnam to stay together, as opposed to America where you're raised to be an individual.
Yeah,
And for
right.
them, it's more keen and they're stronger together than apart. So anybody that doesn't have that same mindset or share those same values, I think it's more drawn to values than it is skin color for them. But they treat you very differently if you're not of the culture. So I wouldn't necessarily, if knowing my best friend, I wouldn't necessarily say she's racist, no, but the way they act upon black people, white people, kind of, discriminates in a way. So
It
that's
almost
why I
seems like
said
it's
that
a
specific.
human character trait.
Wait, what?
I said it almost seems as if it is a human character trait.
Exactly.
That's what we fight against, because the narrative is that racism is inherent in white, not only just white people, white Americans, the youngest country.
Yeah.
Is the most racist country.
is racism's progenitor. You know, that just doesn't make any sense.
One of the youngest and most diverse countries.
Yeah, I know. And we have survived 200 years as the most diverse country and became this one world that everybody comes to. How is that possible? Why the heck did I come here if it was so prolifically racist?
Yeah.
What did it, or how does it currently feel, and maybe you can draw on how it felt in the past, to actually be an African American, not
that was
through
one of
mere
the
heritage, but like through nationality. You have to turn nationality African American, and then see so many thoughts whirling around about what it means to be an African American simultaneously, that I think probably collided with who you actually are.
Yeah, and that's one of the things I argue the most, the fact that Black Americans call themselves African Americans. And I'm like, I get it. Your ancestors were African. I totally get that. I'm never going to take that away from you. However, let's fast forward 200 years. You had never been to Africa. You don't even know what it's like living in Africa. Most of your ancestors are all died off, and most of them are from America. So therefore, you are just an American. No offense. You don't see Irish Americans calling themselves Irish Americans or Italians or any of that. They're just merely Americans. What makes you so special to say that you are African American? There's millions of African Americans who come here and they succeed, but they know that they were born there. And I can say I'm American now because I don't have an African nationality, because they revoked it when I became an American, because they don't do dual citizenship. But ultimately, if I wanted to be president of the United States, I couldn't be president of the United States. And I respect that. So that's where it draws the line. And for me, that was the biggest issue, where it was like, you guys have to embrace being Americans, but the majority of them hate being American. And I'm like, then you have the alternative to move to the country, the continent you so clearly want to be a part of.
Yeah. So maybe you know this, but the culminating step in woke Black American ideology is to make their way back home to Africa.
To the motherland.
To the motherland.
Yeah.
What would shock the mess out of them if
the
that happened?
Simplicity of life. The fact that you don't have as many options that you have in America. The fact that education is not a right there. It's a privilege. The fact that there you are just another number. Here, there's a vast difference in who you are. You're an American. That's the identity of every single individual born here.
Yeah.
No one can strip that from you. So them going there one day, they'd think it's great. They'd fall in love with it, but then reality would shock them that they don't have the ability to criticize the government the way they want. They don't have the ability to just go up to someone and talk to them on the streets and argue with them, because they're probably going to get killed and no one's
Yeah.
going to do anything about it.
Yeah.
Like the simplicity of life is not all that dandy outside of American and outside of the constitutional protection. No, if you're gay there, you're screwed. If you're Muslim or Christian, you go at each other.
Yeah.
Those kinds of things. So life is not as romanticized as the movies Coming to America makes it seem. So
Did
it
you
would
see
be a
part 2 of
huge
that?
culture shock.
Did you see part 2 of that?
Oh, dude, I died laughing. I mean,
I
it
didn't
wasn't as
see it.
funny as the first one, though. It wasn't as funny.
Okay, yeah, I never
I
saw
the
it.
second one. It wasn't as funny as the first one, but it had its moments.
Exactly. I was like, dang, they needed to do it, but I was like, you could have done without it, because there was a lot of leftist agendas there. And
Yeah, that always
Definitely.
happens.
Any new
A
movie
lot.
now, it's how
That
it is.
happens. Yeah. Well, speaking of which, you and I talked. Did you happen to finish the Colin in black and white?
no, I mean, I can talk a little bit about the parts that I
We got to
watched.
hear your thoughts on it. We
Oh
got to
my
hear your thoughts on
gosh. His comparison, I mean, obviously it jumped out of the screen, literally.
Yeah.
Literally,
Yeah.
the slave comparison to the NFL.
Yeah.
I mean, come on, man. You're going to complain about getting paid millions of dollars for something that you worked your butt to get to, for
Yeah.
them measuring you and comparing that to being freaking sold off to auction,
Right.
and just insult the whole dynamic that you continuously try to re-enter when you were kicked out.
Right.
Mhm.
Right.
Re-enter
That's a
everything.
thing. Like, in this, the left ideology, if there were such a thing,
It
is
is.
at war with itself.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like that's why the Democratic Socialist
I thought
Convention
about
is the way it is.
I thought about that when you were talking about Turning Point and saying it's a breath of fresh air. Being around a bunch of people like that, you can just have conversations that can't happen with leftists. It would eventually collapse on itself because there isn't any foundation.
No.
Like an
There's so much
example.
hate.
Yeah, so much hatred.
Because
Like you have Colin that's saying, and not just Colin got it from somewhere, but because I even heard stuff like that in college. I went to a HBCU, I went to Morgan State, and people would say stuff like that about the NFL and NBA being like slavery. I was like, well, sign me up for that slavery.
I
mean,
will take the millions.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
But so you have that form of slavery, and then in the other breakout session in left ideology, you have women saying, "We wish that we got paid as much as those slaves." And it's like, what's happening here?
It's backwards thinking.
Yeah,
It's backwards mentality, and it's starting to. It's the most dangerous thing you can impose on children, because now, and a lot of them are like, "Oh, well, that's how you should raise your children, to believe that they're less than, and to see that as." I mean, come on. What does that do? Because the majority of Black America fights and tries to get out of the oppression that they say they're under to go into sports and become millionaires.
Yeah.
So what does that mean? Should you continue to pursue a career in sports? If that's slavery, are you going to boycott becoming a millionaire like LeBron James, leaving Akron, Ohio? No. You're just going to continue. Pick a side. If you're going to call that slavery, boycott the slavery. If you're going to, then create your own.
Right. Right.
That's the beauty of America. There's
so
a lot of
opportunity
for that.
Right. All of these different, like, highly intelligent, kind of like what you talked about as far as you were an RA and your boss and what they were saying, but they were very intelligent. There are so many intelligent people saying the most foolish things. There's a pastor and an author named Tony Campolo who once said, "There's nothing like listening to a brilliant mind articulate a stupid idea."
Oh man,
And I think that's what we're just seeing all over the place.
it is.
All
It's
over
quite
the place.
sad. It's quite sad because no, like I'm gonna. Were you gonna add to that?
You can interject it because I'm
No,
gonna.
no. Finish, and I'll interject afterwards.
Okay, well, I was just gonna ask if you had gotten to in that series any of the dynamics between, like, the very subtle dynamics between Colin and his parents.
Oh, they dove into it.
Well,
I didn't get into it.
It's not explicit.
passive.
It's implicit. Yeah.
it's very passive.
Um.
But it'll jump. You'll notice it.
Yeah, you'll
when
notice
when you
it.
see it. You'll know. Like, we're already doing this.
Yeah, I'm not even going to talk about it because I just want you to
Yeah.
I want you to enjoy it.
And especially since it probably mirrors potentially your where you were up when you were up, raised.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Like, would you say?
I mean,
that your
mine was. Yeah, I feel
Yeah.
like what you guys are saying would be the complete opposite of how I
yeah,
Right.
I mean,
interacted with my parents.
That's
Right.
exactly
Absolutely.
correct.
No,
Right.
my God. Now
That's
I have
exactly
to
correct.
finish it.
You've
Yeah.
got to, dude. You
Yeah.
got to.
Mhm.
So I hope you didn't forget what you were about to say.
No, I kind of did. I kind of did. But you asked the question on that dynamic.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
We don't
Which
want to say
was-
too much.
Yeah,
because-
I don't want to give it away if you haven't seen it. But I mean, but as far as like the reality of it, speaking, let me backtrack. It's not a reality. I'm sure it's a reality for some people
Mhm.
where white parents are adopting black children to hate them and torture them. I'm not going to say that has never existed in the world,
Mhm.
but I will say this: the society we are creating is perpetuating black parents who would adopt white children and justifiably hate them.
Mhm.
Oh, I mean, the process of adoption alone is oh my gosh, gruesome process.
Mm.
It's not easy. I mean, especially adopting a kid from Africa, but I'm sure it's easier to adopt here in the US, obviously. But
Mm.
you get emotionally involved. There's
Mm.
no disconnect there where if you want to adopt someone, you're going to have to show proof that you actually want to adopt this individual. So that's kind of where I don't know if he was adopted so young where he does not remember that, or he just completely puts that to the side for profit, because I feel as if most of this is a show for
Yeah,
him
yeah.
to profit off of it, because he became so irrelevant in the NFL to a point where who knows, was the kneeling really something he believed in?
Mm.
Or was it something that was going to make him more money because he realized he wasn't good enough for the NFL?
Mm. Yeah, race hustlers have existed for a long time, and like that's not new, right?
No,
There's
no.
always been the race hustler. Booker T. Washington
Jesse
talks
Jackson,
about
yeah.
it. He says that there are a class of people who talk about the issues, but then also, I'm paraphrasing, but also don't want the issues to be solved because then they'll be out of a job.
No. I mean, imagine if there was a cure for cancer, which there
Oh,
probably
dude,
is.
there probably
Right.
is.
Probably is.
Yeah.
Which there probably is. Imagine if there was a cure for racism, which there
Yeah,
probably is.
Well,
And
it's
there
called
is.
Jesus.
Yeah, exactly. Love thy neighbor as
That's
you
right.
would love yourself.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, hey, we're witnessing, not the love thy neighbor part, but we're witnessing
literally.
the cure aspect and the lack of desire for a cure with COVID.
Mhm.
There have been a number of doctors. That's kind of what you and I we got on the phone yesterday to plan for this episode and just immediately started going into this kind of rant off of one
Yeah.
another. But yeah, man, because like, so right before Christmas, I was telling you that he got COVID.
Mhm.
And then he ended up giving it to our entire family,
it's patient zero.
spread throughout PG and Baltimore. This
Oh,
dude,
yeah.
I'm just saying, he's a ticking time bomb. This guy.
You guys just gave them immunity right there. Holy
Yeah,
smokes.
right. So my father didn't catch it because he had COVID a year ago.
Oh, surprise,
So-
surprise.
Yeah,
Mm.
but so the first day or maybe the second day, it progressed with me. I just felt terrible. Aches, was dizzy, headaches, fatigued, and just felt awful, kind of debilitating, really. And I have some blessed friends in Frederick who told me about a doctor that prescribes ivermectin.
Yeah.
Was a telemeeting. I hooked up with the doctor, prescribed it, sent it to a pharmacy. They drove it to me. I took it. I was enjoying a cigar on Wednesday.
You're so white, man. You were enjoying a cigar?
You ain't black.
Golly. You
But-
really
but- and-
were raised
and
by
so-
white parents. Oh, man. That's new.
So I have some friends who also at that same time were sick, and they were regressing like throughout that week. They were regressing and getting nausea and vomiting, and they were considering going to the hospital. Meanwhile, I'm just like,
I'm living it up.
yeah. I was bad on Monday. Tuesday, I'm good. Wednesday, I'm really good. Thursday, I mean, and it just got me angry about how much effort from the onset was placed into squelching actual help for this virus.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that wouldn't have been the case had all these doctors who were speaking out about been censored.
Yeah.
Obviously. I mean, clearly, we all know there's war is a freaking, you make so much money out of war.
Yes.
And why wouldn't you do the same thing when it comes to medicine, when it comes to all this?
Yeah.
So, granted, unfortunately, there is some things that say Trump he made the most off of the vaccine and off of all of that. And I'm like, it's a bit disturbing because I love him to death. And obviously, we don't have to agree on every single thing Trump says or Trump does or policies. That's the beauty of America. Okay.
Right.
So long as he holds our values and promotes the American everything. He's not perfect, and I'm okay with that. But to a degree, if he was benefiting off of that, that's part of what goes on in politics. That's part of what goes on in the world of war, of all that. So there is a cure for COVID. It's called getting it and getting over it, and having everybody do that instead of suppressing them and locking them down and telling them they can't exercise, they can't eat healthy, and
the opposite, right? Yeah.
Exactly, depleting the economy and just making people fear-based, watching the news, CNN in particular. Even Fox News was to blame with that. Making them think the world is going to end. It's a syndrome. Psychologically speaking, you put them in a confined space and you tell them everywhere around you might kill you if you go outside. Obviously, they're going to believe it.
That's exactly right.
So, and that's exactly what they did, as opposed to allowing freedom-loving Americans go to their private physician to actually handle those kinds of decisions for themselves. The government wanted to hijack it, and they did it. And now, 2 years later, that's where we're
millions.
at.
Made millions. And I was doing some research on like COVID in the there's the hospital in Minnesota, Mayo Clinic, very prestigious hospital. They do researches and all research studies on COVID, and they just broke down some numbers. They were just saying, there's 340 million Americans, and 830,000 COVID deaths, supposedly. They actually
supposedly.
said that
I don't believe that.
They said at the most, if everything that has been reported to the CDC is true, there was 831,000 and like 42 deaths in America. That's less than 1% of this country,
and it's always been that case.
And we are shutting it down for less than 1%.
I mean, the flu killed 2 million people. In I think it was 18, right before COVID. We didn't shut down the economy or America for that. And kids are more susceptible to the flu, and the elderly are more susceptible to the flu. So I'm sorry, 800,000 people. I get it. It was new. We're not denying that it's not real, but we're also just asking to be allowed to make our own medical decisions. And there's a vaccine, go take the vaccine, but it's not for me.
You know, one of the most profound SNL skits, which was years ago, because I haven't watched SNL in
I mean,
years.
it
It's just
stopped
not
being
funny
funny
anymore.
years ago.
Yes.
Yeah,
Crash,
it's not funny. But one of the most profound recent skits, I think it was in 2016 maybe,
Mhm.
was when they had Tom Hanks posed as a right-wing MAGA nut
Mhm.
on Black Jeopardy. And they ended up agreeing on a lot of different issues when it came to governmental trust. You know, you start talking about those things and they started agreeing and they were making jokes about it. But I bring that up to say that the whole kind of racist narrative, like we were talking about earlier, a part of that leftist ideology is colliding on itself, especially when the whole vaccine mandate started coming to play on the playground.
Yeah.
Because then you had Black Americans saying, whoa,
Yeah.
well, hold up. Is this the direction our team is going? Because I'm not really down with that.
Exactly.
You know, what have you experienced, especially on a college campus, in regards to how people feel about the vaccines, and then also what that demographic looks like?
Funny enough, because on college campuses, those are just completely rampant with liberal ideologies, professors who a lot of them are conservative but don't want to come out and jeopardize their 10-year, 15-year careers for. So when I was going back to college last year for my senior year, starting my senior year, we received an email stating, you must be vaccinated by September 6th in order to come back and actually be a part of the community. And the unvaccinated will not be wearing masks, but the vaccinated will not wear masks, but the unvaccinated ought to wear masks. I'm like, okay. So I call my dean because I'm really good friends with her. And I'm like, listen, I'm not doing this. I will come back to school, but I will not comply to any of these rules. She's like, oh, well, we only said that and sent that email because we are mandated to do so. So I go in and I get to school and they're like, well, did you get your COVID? I'm like, it's none of your business. It's none of your business. It was the nurse. And she asked me plain out, and I'm like, you know HIPAA laws, right?
Right.
It's none of your business. So I tell her, and she's like, well, we need to chart that. And I was like, no, I don't have it. What are you going to do about it? Here's my exemption, my religious. I did religious and medical, and they can't ask you anything about it. So here it is, and let me do my thing. And I was probably there was probably two other people in my school that didn't get the vaccine out of all the freaking students. Two.
Wow.
But what did I have to do? I had to test every single week, and they made me pay for it. And they're like, well, we're going to punish you for not complying with everybody else.
That's what it is, man. Oh God.
So I was like, you know what? If that's the price for freedom, I'll do it.
Yeah, like I'm fearful for the generation that comes next, who are raised by this current generation. And it makes me more intentional in the way that I parent and teach and pastor. Because government is the new God, and governmental help is the new salvation.
Absolutely. You talk about BLM coming together with the conservatives against the vaccine mandates, right? Remember that?
Yeah.
That is exactly what the Black community stands against: big government overreaching.
That's right.
Why in the world are they supporting a party that wants to impose more control onto them?
Well, and even from the beginning was the ones who imposed the control.
Right, exactly.
It's so lost on me. You know, we've been, Darren and I have been talking about gaslighting recently. One, because it's just what we're all undergoing right now, and we also went through it together. We went through some gaslighting and are healing from it. But people are being told to question their perception of reality in so many ways.
Yeah.
With this COVID thing, like you brought up the numbers, those numbers have not changed. As far as the survival rate, they have not changed.
No.
But what did we get from the beginning? All we got was a ticker of COVID cases, and we were never told what the survival rate was.
No,
No.
because that would.
What did you guys say
defeat
before
purpose.
before we started? You said, you guys were telling us that Maryland has a 92% vaccination rate.
Yeah,
And we're in a state of emergency.
exactly.
It just doesn't make sense. Like nobody, all you have to do is ask questions like, huh? That should be your first question. Huh?
And yeah, exactly.
What does that mean? And just follow wherever the data leads.
Mhm.
I mean, like, you kidding me? What is the problem? If the vaccine is effective, 92% vaccination rate in a state as small as Maryland.
Yeah.
Maryland only has about 5 million residents.
That's how they were able to do it. The 92%.
Yeah. That means
and
that
that's
if COVID was very dangerous, that means that number would be very high as well, because we're a small state.
Yeah.
exactly. And you don't need to have a degree in mathematics or statistics or
No.
anything to realize that. It's called common goddamn sense.
Yeah.
And I even had a conversation with my counselor, who basically tells me which classes I should take. And she's a psychologist with a PhD. And she's like, I'm so glad my kids are wearing masks. I'm so glad my kids are vaccinated. No, it was before the vaccine was given to the children. And she's like, once it's released, I'm going to take them straight there to get vaccinated. I was like, you're a psychologist and I admire you because you're a brilliant mind, but you just lost a lot of credibility with me here, because I pointed out to her, all of this can be avoided with common sense. And she's like, well, there's no such thing as common sense in science. And I was like, then what are numbers?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
What are they for?
What are numbers?
Yeah.
Because numbers are
they're under attack.
commonsensical.
Joel, I'm not going to have you on this podcast talking numbers and math and any other racist talk on this.
I
on this
know.
podcast.
I'm sorry.
You know, that is unacceptable, and
It's
we just
very-
won't. We won't tolerate it.
Clearly. I mean, I'm sorry. I barely know numbers. Here I am talking about them.
so like, I think the current, like immediate current gaslighting we're enduring in this day is constantly being told to question our perception of reality that pertains to the evil that was actually seen and experienced in December in 1942, I believe, 41, and in September 11th, 2000. For 2001. I'm sorry. I don't do math, guys. It's racist. So, we're told to question that perception. Everything that we know about that being evil needs to be thrown in the trash. And what we need to replace that with is with what we all experienced and endured January 6th.
You remember where you were, Joel?
Joel, where were you on January 6th?
I was in
2020?
DC.
Oh, you were in DC? Wow.
I was at
because there was the rally. Yeah.
I was at that rally, and I was this is brilliant. The government already knows this, I'm sure. But either way, I was at that rally, and it was minutes before anything started. We were still listening to Trump. And the Capitol was about 3 miles away from where we were all of us. So everything started. Trump paused mid-speech because I think he was getting briefed on what was happening and starting at the Capitol while we were watching the man intently. So how could we have planned any of this?
Yeah.
Or anything? And then we start marching after he told us to make our voices peacefully heard, because peaceful is the key word, and patriotic, because those are the two words that you cannot say, the two P's you cannot say, because that is what started everything and killed one person. Yeah. And no officers killed. All the officers, if you remember, died
we remember.
after the thing. After that, no part.
Yeah. Well, that's a part of the gaslighting, because what happens is the news will report something false. I mean, do you remember what the news was like during
Oh,
I
it
mean,
was
like
awful.
what the news was like saying
It was like
five
6 people were killed. An officer got hit in the head with a fire extinguisher.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, and that story kept changing.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
did. Yeah.
Weeks later, it was like it wasn't a fire extinguisher. It was this. I'm sorry.
Here's what we said this a couple podcasts ago. With that misinformation with mainstream media, what they do is that part what you just said is so loud, right?
Mhm.
These cops got hit in the head with a fire extinguisher, blah blah blah. That part's so loud, front page media. But
Yeah.
then the corrections are like 12 a.m. Actually,
no,
no
sorry,
that.
we apologize.
Right,
But
last
they don't
page of
even
the newspaper.
apologize.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so people are still mad
Mhm.
about the lie they told. They
Mhm.
haven't even heard the
Yeah,
correction.
they don't even know.
And they don't even care
No.
about the correction.
People are still
Exactly.
mad about Trump colluding with Russia.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what they
When
think.
that was debunked, just
Debunked.
They're still mad about him saying there's good people on both sides. If you haven't seen that whole clip yet, then you've done nothing.
No,
Yeah.
because all these people, all they do is fixate on exactly what they're told. Mass formation psychosis.
Yeah, I was just listening to Dr. Malone about that.
Mhm. Mass formation psychosis. That's all they do. CNN. When we were talking to this individual on the street who pulled us aside, who pranked us, basically, that's all he was spewing. He was spewing exactly what CNN said, and we're like, "Where are you getting all this?" He's like, "Oh, CNN and the news." I'm like, that's all you watch. That's all you get your information from. And he's like, "Yeah." And I'm like, "Well, then there's your problem right there."
Yeah, man.
And he's supposedly a white, very educated individual. So
this is what I want to do.
Ludicrous.
I want us to sit and cringe together.
Yeah.
We're about to listen to this. Is all from today. Is this all from? No,
it's from the past.
Okay,
I'll play
so
the one
we've got some things. He's pulled some clips from from last year and from this year in regards to the language behind January 6th. Let's just listen to some of this.
I hope it has something to do with Ted Cruz as well.
Oh man,
he screwed the pooch on that.
He did.
Feels like things have actually gotten worse since January 6th, honestly. I remember reading the reports about when Trump began his run for office, he inspired an uptick in white nationalism and in violent white nationalism.
I think it's much worse than it was on January 6th. It's much worse than it was in November. It's much worse after January 6th. And part of the problem is because there's been no accountability, it's given permission to do more of this. What would happen if after 9/11 we had done nothing? We had done nothing. Right. Think about that. If we had done nothing after 9/11. And to me, though there was less loss of life on January 6th, January 6th was worse than 9/11 because it's continued to rip our country apart and give permission for people to pursue autocratic means. And so I think we're at a much worse place than we've been. And as I've said, I think to you before, I think we're in the most perilous point in time since 1861 in the advent of the Civil War.
I do too. And it frightens me. What scares me the most, Matthew, is that I'm not sure that most Democrats, at least elected Democrats in Washington, agree with us or are afraid as we are. I said yesterday, talking with Malcolm Nance and Susan Del Percio, who's a Republican strategist, if you break down what this looks like to me, it looks directly like fascism. It looks like Mussolini's Italy.
Okay. So before you comment on that, let me just rehash real quick. So we right now, as we are recording this podcast in the confines of my man cave in freedom, we are in Mussolini's Italy. And the subject that we are memorializing, the event that we're memorializing today, is an event that is far greater than what happened on September 11th.
Yeah. And the Civil War.
And Civil War.
And the Civil War.
Yeah. Well, what it seemed like was more of like I agreed with them, actually. It is much worse now.
Yeah.
That's right. One thing.
That's the way stories go. It's like telephone.
Yeah, exactly. It is much worse because Biden is in charge, supposedly.
Right.
Supposedly. He's in charge. The country is on the brink of division that has never been seen before, even worse than when Trump was in office.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. We withdrew from Afghanistan and the freaking It is much worse because we have an incompetent individual who is representing us as a commander in chief, and his whole administration completely does not know what the Constitution stands. When Harris was reading the preamble, it sounded like today, like that was the first time she had ever read that.
I know.
Yeah.
Oh,
So if you want to make an argument about it being much worse than it was in January 6th, but that's because it is, because nothing happened on January 6th.
yeah,
Nothing bad happened.
yeah. We have a couple more.
Certain dates echo throughout history, including dates
Ugh,
that
I
instantly
hate you guys.
remind all who have lived through them where they were and what they were doing when our democracy came under assault. Dates that occupy not only a place on our calendars, but a place in our collective memory. December 7th, 1941, September 11th, 2001, and January 6th, 2021.
When I'm listening to these things, it is so left field, no
Yeah.
pun intended,
Mhm.
that it's very obvious that this is the grasping at something based off of opportunism.
Yeah.
Mhm.
This is opportunistic politicians, and then that now there's something we should worry about as citizens of this country.
Yeah.
Because opportunistic politicians have been the cause of a lot of corruption in the
Yeah.
past.
No, I feel as if, man, it's much worse than all of those days. But what about the summer of love?
Oh my goodness.
Never
I
happened.
mean, how many people died?
Men in Black, flashy,
So many.
flashy thing. Yeah.
So
no,
many.
How long did it last?
Forever.
Oh, the whole year.
It's still happening.
It's yeah. Oh, you got.
That's why it's much
There's a clip.
worse.
There's another clip you have, I think.
I do.
Did you play? I don't know. Maybe I just heard something. No, maybe I just heard something. But so this is a part of the gaslighting we experienced, right? Where
Who said that protesting has to be peaceful?
that not that.
That's Cuomo,
Wait,
man. Oh my.
There's
it
so many
Cuomo?
receipts. It's not even.
Yeah, that's what he
funny.
said. Yeah.
Yeah, there's so many.
He was talking
receipts.
about the 2020 mess.
Yeah,
And he said, "Who said that protests have to be peaceful?"
Yeah.
but
No,
even
he's
the
right.
smash and grabs and the looting, we're not supposed to use the word looting because it's offensive to looters. But
Yeah.
everything, this is all gaslighting. It's making you deny the perception of reality that is right in front of your face.
Mhm.
And so what we saw in 2020, where through apparently the fighting to be recognized as a Black life,
Mhm.
Black lives were taken.
Mm-hmm.
And then what was highlighted throughout that year was a white guy who was there doing something other than writing, got attacked, and in self-defense killed people, none of which who are Black.
Mhm.
But that is the poster for the Black plight, that incident.
Mhm.
And all of that happened throughout the whole year. You had Black officers killed. You had Black children killed
Mhm.
through these things. And then you have a rally, and a portion of the people who were at that rally, maybe some who weren't, and definitely some who work for the government, go
Mhm.
to the Capitol, and they go inside after invitation
Mhm.
and take selfies.
Yeah.
And now that is the event that has been elevated as more notorious than the most notorious attacks made on this country's
Right.
soil.
And here's why they're doing this. Here's why they're doing this.
Pearl Harbor.
They want to discourage people from doing exactly what patriotism looks like.
Mhm.
They want to discourage people because imagine if everyone at that Trump rally you were at was like, you know what? This is the fight. This is the moment where we, which is constitutionally protected,
Mhm.
go into our Capitol building and demand that the people that work for us do and honor their contract as our subservience. You know what I mean? They work for us. That is
Absolutely.
constitutionally protected. That's why the Second Amendment exists.
Oh.
They're not allowed to breach their contract as government people and then go, hey guys, be peaceful. No. You don't get to do whatever you want and violate laws and create new laws that are unconstitutional and then tell the people that you work for to calm down.
Right.
So that's why they want to demonize that kind of activity. They want to act like,
no,
that's so horrendous that you would ever do this to your capital. No. What's horrendous is that you would do this to your country. And the people are allowed to take their country back anytime they want.
Absolutely.
You need to be reminded that you work for us.
Ooh,
That's what they don't
There was
want.
some bars. He gave us some bars.
That's
right
what they
there.
don't want. They don't want people to do that. That's harmful to their agenda. They don't want people to know that you can take up arms and go to the Capitol because it's your building. It's not their building.
No,
it's ours.
This right here is the left's most dangerous circle right here. Educated Black people who can articulate their way through the Constitution, history, all of that. The fact that you said that is the exact reason why. Because first and foremost, if we really planned January 6th, there was maybe 2 million people there. I'm probably over exaggerating that, but it was the biggest rally for a president who lost by 6 million votes, apparently, or 9
and that's a
million
foregone conclusion now. Like that, that
Exactly.
conversation's gone now.
Exactly. No, he lost by that many, but he had 2 million people at his rally when his opponent was in a basement with basically hiding. But if we really wanted to make our voices heard or really wanted to change everything, don't you think everybody at that rally, 18 and up or 21 and up, had guns?
Yeah.
Why wouldn't we go to DC with our guns?
Why
wouldn't we breach the Capitol with our guns?
People have no idea how many guns exist in this country.
All right.
Just alone in those 2 million people, there would have been maybe 1.5 million guns at that Capitol.
and people think that that's all about. And so what media does with that, in which you keep saying it, but we need to do an episode on guns. But why the media keeps juxtaposing gun ownership with murders that happen, most of which happen in gun-controlled urban territory. The reason they keep juxtaposing that is so that their push to take guns is supported by citizens. And that has been sort of working in a sense. It hasn't happened in full, but there have been infringements on gun rights already. We live in Maryland. We experience it. But when you were talking about earlier, as far as people not understanding the freedoms that we have in this country and the ability to live that we enjoy in this country that most people do not enjoy outside the world, it's because of those little metal polymer tools that these Americans get to keep. It's because your government doesn't get to just do whatever they want. See, people are up in arms, metaphorically speaking, over a lot of things that are happening now. When it comes to the way corrupt government acts abroad and outside the world, Americans would not hesitate to lay their lives down to get y'all up out of here. They wouldn't hesitate.
No, they're not even 1% of our freaking country. There's 340 million. We're 349. Let's say there's 1% of the elites. You think you're going to win that war?
They know that.
You're not going to win that war.
So we have to do this internal fighting. We got to do this narrative. We have to do the mass psychosis like you were talking about, because now it's an apocalypto thing. Let's get people hating and fighting each other, and then we will come in and save with a solution that people never would have accepted beforehand. But now that things
it's
are
more
so bad,
government control.
That's right.
That's
and
the
it's worse
solution
than the problem
for them.
And
more government control. You know where that gets you? Germany.
That's exactly right.
Mussolini.
Actually.
Exactly.
That's
fascism.
That's fascism.
Exactly. What Trump is not fascism. What Trump was Reagan-esque, and do whatever you want so long as you don't break the law.
Yeah, they hate
Exactly.
Yeah, they hate
And
that.
They hate
even the
that.
notion. Go. Sorry.
No. I was just saying that they hate that. I was just commenting on what you said.
Absolutely. Even the notion of us going up to someone and pointing the gun at them, but
Mhm.
not shooting them is legal under the Constitution,
Yeah,
so long as you don't kill them.
yeah,
Because if that person is, they basically took our rights away to make our voices heard under the First Amendment. And what are we supposed to do? Just let them do it?
Yeah.
We had every single right to do that had we actually been in charge or planned any of that.
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
And there's
I know
nothing they could have done.
it really isn't. I know one of the common retorts is that, well, the government has the military,
No, they don't.
and people fail to realize the military is made up of citizens.
Mm-hmm.
They're made up of citizens. Now, I do believe that there is an intentional weeding out of traditionally valued citizens in the military. That's why they're imposing all these different things so that people who don't want any part of that can be like, I'm out of here.
Yeah, that's why they're trying to indoctrinate our military now.
Yeah.
It's so much easier to control people who think exactly like you.
Yeah.
It's so much easier to control left-leaning individuals than right-leaning individuals, because then they can do exactly what you ask them for. That's when the government controls the military.
Yeah.
So maybe that's a strategy for them, saying, if you're not vaccinated, we're going to remove you or leave.
Yeah, right.
Just so they can have a military, just so they can have that to turn on the American people on. That could be a strategy.
Yeah, it could be. I mean, and it wouldn't be a new one. It wouldn't be a new strategy.
Yeah.
Let's as we wrap up, I have a question for you. Why do you think, when it comes to patriotism, in its classical sense, not in its leftist sense, when it comes to patriotism, Black Americans seem at the bottom of the totem pole?
Man, it's the saddest thing too, because you have more to be patriotic about than anybody. The fact that, you had to struggle to break slavery. Yeah, it's an awful thing, but it didn't just happen in America. Sorry, I'm going to break the bubble right there. But still, the fact that you had to overcome that and you were given that, you have so much more to be patriotic about. And that's the saddest thing, because I don't know where there was a divide where Black Americans thought they were supposed to vote Democrat or supposed to, they have conservative values.
Yeah, right.
All the way throughout life. It's always been family, God, family, and I don't remember, and community or something like that.
And no
but
big
it was
government.
always those things.
Yeah.
But now what has changed? They still have those, but now who promises them the wrong things? Who promises them those kinds of, oh, you'll get free this, free that, free this, free. The left. They've hijacked that and made them believe that they've always been on their side when they haven't. That's why it goes to less patriotism, because they've been told they're oppressed their entire lives. So what is there to celebrate if you're oppressed your entire life?
That's right.
Yeah, and the left has to ride that oppressed train, and the white supremacist train, and this is the worst the country has been since the 1800s train, because that's how you get people to relinquish freedoms, through fear.
Yeah. No.
Fear and free stuff.
Yeah.
Security.
I always
People will
thought,
trade in freedom for security.
oh, absolutely.
Well, fake
It's
security.
so easy.
It's not even real security. It's fake.
No. Yeah. What are those masks?
Right.
All you got to do is put it on to feel safe.
Yeah.
Right.
So absolutely. It's the saddest thing, because they've always, Black community should be the most patriotic.
Yeah.
And they have the most to be patriotic because of all what they've overcome. You could be the greatest group in America, but you hold yourselves back because you've given all your freedom to one side and completely isolated yourself.
Yeah.
And isolation doesn't solve anything. It only hurts you and your kids the more.
Mm. Mm.
So people like LeBron James making millions and telling other kids that they can't do what he does or become who he is because they
Yeah.
live in
I
an
can't wait
oppressed
to hear
society.
his Hall of Fame speech.
Mm-hmm.
They can't
Oh,
say
just
anything about
imagine.
hard work. You can't talk about work ethic. You can't talk
No.
about any of that. You got
No.
to talk about slavery.
Yeah.
Let's hear it. LeBron, how'd you overcome slavery?
Yeah, no,
Let's
I
hear
didn't.
it.
I just joined it, and they paid me millions of dollars.
Right.
Right. Work for China.
So yeah, exactly. China paid me a lot, and I
Mhm.
kept you all oppressed.
Mhm.
Yeah. Man, here's a spotlight moment. What are some things you're working on, or what are some things you want to point people's attention to, your Instagram or anything else? And now's the time. Let them know.
Well, thank you guys first of all for having me on. Definitely a
Absolutely.
pleasure having conversations with you guys. I'm actually coming out with my own podcast after I graduate in May. It's
Yeah.
gonna be.
Nice.
I'm not gonna reveal the name yet because you know
All right.
you gotta keep
Okay.
it
Yeah.
really
Keep the suspense, man. Keep
secretive.
the suspense.
Yeah.
Text me later.
And I'm gonna start doing more of those outings where I'm actually having these discussions with people on the streets, and whether it's talking about certain issues. I'll be doing more of that, and I'm honestly diving more into this realm where I'm solely focusing my attention on these aspects where I think the best thing we can have is a conversation as opposed to a debate, because I'm
Absolutely.
not a great debater. I'm a
Yeah.
great conversationalist,
Mm-hmm.
and I can sway you in a manner in which, because I will listen to you. So
Mhm.
that's kind of what I'm trying to promote more, and I'm trying to go deeper in. So everybody can find me at Token Black Guy USA on Instagram, TikTok, Getter, because it's climbing, man. It's climbing.
It's
Screw
time to go
Twitter.
on.
Screw Twitter. Leave
Yeah.
Twitter. I'm not even going to mention Twitter for my username.
Mhm.
It's Token BG_USA for Getter and
Okay.
YouTube. So there's a lot of things coming forward. I'm trying to see for a new show, and there's so much. But you and I will stay connected, and I'll
Yes,
keep you guys
dog.
updated.
Definitely.
So, and there's my website. You can go to tokenblackguyusa.com if you like what I do. Support
Okay.
me. It would greatly help with all of
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Well, man, it's been a joy and a pleasure having you on. I'm grateful for this episode, but then also, like I said, like these moments are a breath of fresh air. You know, I mean, there are so many points of connection for us. The world would have us find joy in the fact that our skin color looks the same. Then the next level would have us find joy in the fact that our ideologies are the same. But
Yeah.
we're brothers in the Lord, and
Yeah.
I'm grateful for that. And just keep fighting that fight, man. Keep
Absolutely.
standing firm. And I pray schooling goes well. Stand firm on that campus, dog.
Yeah.
I
I'm
know it's
actually
hard.
no longer in the campus though.
Oh, okay.
I only have 2 courses, so I'm not a full-time student.
Okay.
So I can't be on campus. So
Well,
my career's done almost. But
keep enjoying that Floridian
Yeah.
weather and freedom.
Wearing shorts and tank tops year round.
you know I will do that. Come on. Show off these legs. These ex-soccer players' legs.
Get that
Yeah.
tan, man. Get that tan.
Yeah. You already know. I need more of it anyways.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, we appreciate you guys tuning into this episode of Black and Blurred. We hope to see more young Black American voices who hold firm to the traditional values that we once had of family, freedom, and faith. Do not be gaslit. Do not have your identity stripped from you. Stand firm. Thank you guys for tuning into this episode where you're guaranteed to hear one of two things: our humble opinion
Or the facts.
holler at us.